So in the Philippines, there's this amazing new law, a real game changer that promises every single child a quality education, no matter their disability. But, and this is a big but, what happens when that incredible promise slams right into the reality of a system that just isn't ready for it? Well, that's what we're going to dive into.
Yeah, this is the big question, right? It really gets to the heart of the matter. We're talking about this incredible vision for inclusion, but also the massive, massive challenges of actually making it real for millions of kids out there.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. It all kicks off with this landmark law, Republic Act 11650. And look, this isn't just some boring policy document. You've got to understand this is a fundamental promise made to every single learner with a disability in the entire country.
And this right here, this is the core of the whole thing. This single sentence is a non-negotiable mandate. It's basically saying to every single school, public and private, your doors have to be open to everyone, period. Exclusion? Yeah, that's just not an option anymore.
And to really get a sense of how huge this is, you have to look at the timeline. It's a total paradigm shift. I mean, we're going from a system where special ed was just a responsibility, kind of a service for, quote, certain clientele, to a system where inclusion is a guaranteed legal right for everyone. It completely reframes the conversation from disability being a medical problem to it being a human rights issue. That's a massive change. Okay, so the promise is incredible, right? But here's where we hit a wall. There's this giant, gaping canyon between the law on paper and what's actually happening on the ground in schools. It's what experts call the policy-practice chasm. And let me tell you, it is deep. And the first red flag? A truly staggering delay. The law gets signed back in March 2022, but the actual rules to make it happen, they don't even take effect until January 2025. We're talking about a nearly 3-year gap. Now, for you and me, that might sound like bureaucratic red tape, but for thousands of students, that's a promise put on hold. It's a critical window for learning, just gone. And then you see this number, and it just stops you in your tracks. 2,601. That's the total number of specialized elementary school SPED teachers for the entire country. Just think about that. How on earth are you supposed to build a truly inclusive nationwide system with a workforce that small? It's a huge, huge hurdle. This chart really paints a picture of the next problem: major inequality. Look at this. More than a quarter of all the special education centers are packed into the national capital region. So if you live there, great. But what if you live out in a rural area, say Cagayan Valley? Well, your access to these absolutely vital resources just plummet. And that's what's so frustrating, especially in places like Cagayan Valley. You've got these amazing teachers on the ground who are incredibly knowledgeable. They know their stuff, they know what to do, but they're totally blocked by the system. It's like, how can you collaborate with a therapist or a psychologist who just isn't there? How do you reach kids in far-flung villages when there's no transportation, no money, no materials? All right, so the system is clearly facing some huge challenges. So where do we even start to fix this? Well, you've got to get smarter right at the very beginning with how we identify which students actually need that specialized support. And believe me, in a country with over 180 languages, that is way more complex than it sounds. So here's the golden rule. You could call it the L1 litmus test. Think about it. If a kid is having a tough time reading in English, but they can read just fine in their native language, their mother tongue, that's probably not a reading disability. That's just what it looks like to learn a new language. A real potential learning disability is going to cause problems in both languages. Getting this distinction right is absolutely vital to avoid mislabeling kids. And one of the best tools for figuring this out is something called dynamic assessment. Now, this is a real game changer. Instead of a typical test that just tells you what a student already knows, dynamic assessment measures their potential to learn. In a place as linguistically diverse as the Philippines, this approach is just perfect. And the process itself is so simple but so powerful. It's basically test, teach, retest. First, you test a new skill. Then, you explicitly teach that skill. And finally, you retest it. If a student makes a big jump in that teach phase, it's a huge clue. It probably means they had a knowledge gap, not a learning disability. It's all about seeing how they respond to good instruction. Okay, so with all these big systemic problems, you might be thinking, what can one teacher actually do? And that brings us to what I think is the most empowering part of this whole story: the practical, low-cost strategies that can literally transform a classroom starting tomorrow.
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? When you've got no budget, no materials, how in the world are you supposed to provide all this support? It feels impossible. But the answer, and this is the beautiful part, isn't about buying more stuff. It's about a fundamental shift in mindset. And that mindset has a name: Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. The core idea is just brilliant. It says, stop trying to fix the kid and start fixing the classroom environment. Instead of reacting to problems, you design your lessons to be flexible for everyone, right from the start.
And here's the thing that everyone needs to hear: you do not need a bunch of expensive tech to do this. A lot of people hear universal design and think iPads and smartboards. No! The most powerful UDL is often no-tech UDL. We're talking about smart, simple things a teacher can do with what they already have. A blackboard, getting kids to work together, and just offering choices.
Okay, let's make this real. Got a student with dysgraphia who really struggles to write? Let them give an oral report instead. Have a student with ADHD who gets overwhelmed? Shorten the assignment to reduce the cognitive load. See? These are zero-cost, zero-tech changes that can have an absolutely massive impact on a child's success. In fact, if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this: the single most powerful, high-impact, and totally zero-cost strategy any teacher has in their toolkit is flexible assessment. It's that simple. And it all comes down to this one beautiful phrase: show me what you know. You can write it, tell me about it, or draw it. That's it. That one sentence opens up the entire world. The student who can't write can now speak. The artistic kid can draw their answer. The writer can still write. You're not lowering the bar. You're just building more ramps to get over it.
So that's where we'll leave it. Bridging this huge gap between the promise of this law and the reality in classrooms, it can feel totally overwhelming. But what if the most powerful solutions aren't the most expensive ones? What if they're rooted in a simple mindset of flexibility and choice? A mindset any teacher can adopt literally tomorrow. Just imagine, what could an entire system achieve if it decided to embrace that same way of thinking?